Well, hello everybody. This is your Living Classroom Program Coordinator, Caroline Chan. I'm here at Santa Rita School today with the amazing Mr. Dave, who you know is a kindergarten aide and a Living Classroom docent for many years. So we're going to take a look at nature at your very own school. And the first thing we're going to check out is this redbud tree that's been recently planted over here as a donation from Greentown. It's part of their 500 Trees campaign, where they're trying to plant 500 trees throughout Los Altos, and they kindly donated beautiful redbud trees to each of the schools in the district. So you can notice, maybe Dave, could you show us their heart-shaped leaves? There we go, pan in there. Really pretty heart-shaped leaves. This is one of those deciduous trees that drops its leaves in the fall, and they sprout out about this time of year, and we even have some new forming buds coming up on the tree here.
Right.
Lots of birds like to eat the seeds from this tree.
It's a new growth we're having.
Yeah, all those little leaves there. That's looking great. All right, so thanks to Greentown for donating this great tree. We're so excited about it. All right, let's venture off to another part of your school. So Mr. Dave, I wanted to share something about this interesting plant right over here near the office. So in 5th grade, we study photosynthesis, which is that process whereby plants take water and carbon dioxide, and they use the energy from the sun to make food for themselves in the form of sugar, and lucky for us, they give off oxygen as a byproduct, which we breathe in. So how do plants that don't have green leaves, like this bush here that has mostly red leaves, photosynthesize? Because it's the chlorophyll, that green pigment, that's responsible for photosynthesis in plants. Well, it turns out plants have more than just chlorophyll. They have other pigments, carotenoids and anthocyanins, which give them other colors like red and yellow as well. Only they're not as dominant as the green chlorophyll in most plants, so that's why we see them as green. But in some plants, those other pigments are a little bit more dominant, and we don't necessarily see the chlorophyll, even though it's still there doing its job, making food for the plants. And we're over here at the 1st grade planting beds right now, and look, they're pretty much empty. That's because we planted veggies in the fall and we harvested them to make yummy soup. So hopefully you 1st graders, or if you've had 1st grade, remember that fun lesson. There is something growing here that we were planning to use this spring. It is mint. And it's one of those wonderful plants that if you rub your fingers on the leaves and you smell your fingers, you pick up a wonderful minty scent. So we were planning to harvest the leaves from this plant and steep them in hot water. That just means letting them soak in some hot water to make a yummy tea with in our garden tea lesson. So that's still something that you could potentially do at home, because mint is an herb. It's very easy to grow. Even if you just have a balcony or a windowsill, you can try growing a little mint there, and then harvest some leaves and put them in some hot water and enjoy a nice minty tea. All right, now we are over at one of the 2nd grade wheat beds for Miss Chadwick's class. We're going to take a look at how the wheat's growing that we planted last fall. This is called winter wheat, so it grows all winter long. And then we harvest it in the springtime. We thresh the seeds out of the wheat heads. We grind it into flour and we make pretzels with it. So you can see a couple of the dry wheat heads here. And those are getting ready to be harvested. We do have a recipe for making pretzels on the Living Classroom parent page. If you haven't checked that page out yet, please do. We've got all kinds of activities based on our lessons that you can do at home. So making pretzels might be fun.
Fantastic.
All right, folks, we are now over at one of the 3rd grade Three Sisters beds. And Mr. Dave's going to point out what he recently did. I think it was just last week, planted some corn beans and squash in this garden for us.
Okay, so as we mentioned, Three Sisters are 3 different plants that work together and that grow together. And the Native Americans in many parts of the country, or North America, have been planting these for thousands of years. So the corn grows up and makes some structure, and also corn to eat with carbohydrates. The beans that you can just see, they're just starting to sprout here, here, here. And what they're gonna do, these are pole beans. And as the corn grows up, the pole bean is gonna use the corn stalk as the structure to keep the beans off the ground and hold them up in the air with the flowers and everything and the fruit and the beans. So that's the structure. And then from out of the center, we also planted, looks like the sunflowers are coming up. We planted some sunflowers so that they would, as they're blooming, attract some pollinators. Okay, and then also planted here are the pumpkin plants. They may take a little bit longer to sprout, but then the pumpkin plants, as they start spreading out on this mound, this circly mound area, the big leaves will shade the ground and keep some of the water from evaporating back into the air. So hopefully, the hope is that you have to water this a little bit less. Now, the neat thing too is not only are the Three Sisters growing, have a balance in growing together. So here's the corn growing up for the structure for the beans, and then the pumpkins shade the ground. When you eat these 3 plants together, corn for carbohydrates, and the beans for protein, and the pumpkins for vitamin C and vitamin A and others, they're very complementary. So it helps you have a much better balanced diet than if I only ate corn all the time.
All right, we are over at one of the 6th grade planting in circles beds. This is where we plant lettuce and radishes in concentric circles in the garden to learn about the concepts of radius, diameter, and circumference. So Mr. Daves here is going to point out our center point that is shown by this little lettuce here. And then we created a inner circle that has lettuce on 4 points, and in between, you can't quite see it too well yet, but we planted radishes, and they're just starting to sprout and show through the soil. So eventually that will look like a circle around the center point. And then we even have another circle, a larger circle, so we have a set of what we call concentric circles in the garden with more radishes and lettuce. All right, well now we're over at the 6th grade Ancient Civilizations garden beds. Here we've got onions and garlic. If we look closely at the stems, we can tell that the onions are the ones with the more tubular stems, and the garlic have the more flattened stems. So when those get a little bit bigger, we will be harvesting those to make a lemon garlic dressing that goes onto a multicultural salad. Over here, we have fava beans, and these are doing amazing. So if you look closely, do we have any flowers? We've got flowers right here. And once those get pollinated, we're going to see some lovely beans forming. And Mr. Dave, maybe we could take a look at those beans here. So
wow,
those
there's
are
a lot.
edible beans. A lot of people make hummus and soups out of those.
Yum.
So these are doing really well. We also wanted to share some herbs with you that were used by some of the ancient civilizations. We've got oregano here. This is a wonderful one to rub your fingers on and smell. We've also got sage. Maybe some of you have cooked with these things before. Oh,
They
smells so
smell,
good.
yeah, really great.
And then we've got rosemary here, but there's a really nice looking one, even better looking one, down this way. So let's take a look. This rosemary here, which the Greeks believed would make you remember things better on tests. So I always ask the students when we're at this part of the lesson, do you have a test today? And we give them a little sprig, you put it behind your ear, and it's supposed to help you remember things. All right, folks, I am somewhere at Santa Rita School. Whoa, there's some wind. Where could I be to see whatever this is? I'm gonna pull back, take off my macro lens. Where do you see daisies growing at your school? Well, the 6th grade park, of course. It's absolutely beautiful here. This is where we would go for our 4th grade habitat perspectives lesson, where we look closely at what we call microhabitat, a really small part of your 6th grade park. And we look to see what's growing there and if there's anything like a plant or an insect or other animal. You check out its adaptations to see if there are things that help it survive. All right, Mr. Dave, this is your area, the kindergarten area. Let's see what we have here.
So here in Mrs. Nakano's bed, we have a lot of cool things. You might remember when our arugula went to seed, and got these great seed pods. They're not dried yet, but the seeds are hiding out in these pods after the bees pollinated these cool white and black flowers. Right when we left school, there were lots of bees over here. We were trying to figure out what this was. So this is arugula, okay? Then down hiding with the beautiful calendulas, as I mentioned earlier, is parsley. Everybody seemed to like the parsley on our last tour we took. Like to taste everything. We've got our smaller of our sunflowers. Oh, and the bees are very happy with everything blooming. We've got the really big, almost as tall as Dave, Mr. Dave sunflowers. And it's really cool. I was showing you earlier. Take a look in this head. Every one of those is going to be, since it's been pollinated, is going to be a sunflower seed. So we'll be planting a lot of sunflowers soon. And the last thing that looks really nice here is the snap peas are doing great. We got some flowers, and we've got some small peas, and we got some that are getting a little fatter, and some that look like they're just about ready to eat down here. Could make a really nice salad with those, or just chomp on them by themselves. Now let's take a look at Mrs. Goforth's bed. Now the first thing, when you take a look, that pops into my mind is look at the size of this celery plant. Is this a happy celery? Very much so. I think what happened last year is we had a big one and it went to seed. So this is coming up, and I'm betting soon we're going to see flowers come up. And it planted itself this year. We did not have to plant this one, very interestingly. Okay, and then let's take a look, and Caroline and I were laughing about this earlier. Look at the size of this red cabbage head. It really makes me smile and laugh because I think about Little Shop of Horrors and the talking plant. Pretty big. Okay, and then as I mentioned, Mr. Vince, the master gardener, gave us 3 of these beautiful cauliflower plants. And I believe this one was the white one. The third one is purple. We'll go take a look. And I don't know yet. We'll have to see as this one keeps growing whether it gets the tiny head in the middle. But if we look at the one that's way over here, it's grown even in the last week. And look at the color on that one. Nice purple head of cauliflower. Right next to our potato.
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that neat? And we have we have some potato plants that I planted in each of the corners. Let's look at Mrs. Gupta's garden. We're gonna try pulling some things out, I think, because we have some questions. As we looked at this earlier, and Mr. Dave was wondering if this was an onion plant, but now that we're looking at it,
Oh, there's a butterfly.
Oh,
A
nice.
swallowtail.
And look, it's right there on the celery plant.
Wow, are we lucky or what? Is it on the
That is
backside still?
beautiful.
I can move over. Oh, there it is down
That
there.
is beautiful. On our TK celery.
Look at this. Wow, that's absolutely stunning. Oh, there it goes. Back on our celery.
It knows where there's going to be some good flowers. Fantastic. I think that's a good sign. We're doing something right with our gardens.
Definitely. Where we have plants, the animals come.
Wow, that's
So
beautiful.
cool. There it goes.
Fantastic.
Oh, it keeps coming back. You think it's gone, and then it's back.
Okay, that's the highlight of my day.
Mine too. I can barely keep up with it. It's so fast.
All right. This is a Brussels sprout plant. Even though the flowers look reminiscent of a broccoli, you can see the little Brussels sprouts at each of the juncture of the leaves from the stem. So that's kind of cool. It's getting ready to go to seed. And then there's this huge thing. I thought, the kids and I thought these were carrots. I'm not so sure, because look how big this is. So we're gonna pull one out and see what it looks like. Because if it's a carrot, I want to know. It is.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's amazing.
I have not ever seen one with the leaves this long. All right, that is super duper. Looks like a yellow or a white carrot. So when we finish harvesting the rest of the bed, you'll see more of these. And then who can miss these lovely calendulas? And as I mentioned before, you can see after they get pollinated, the seed, these are all seeds. So as these dry out and fall to the ground, guess what? We're gonna have a lot more calendulas, and that'll be good for the 5th graders. They'll use that in their
The colonial uses of plants lesson.
That's right, and they'll paint their own flags that they're making out with some orange color and some other things. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the TK garden. The beautiful tub. The dirt in here, for some reason, has always been so good. Look at the size, and we saw this with our swallowtail butterfly. Look at the size of this celery plant. What, about 3 feet tall? Almost as tall as some of you might be. That's incredible. And again, some arugula that's going to seed. We'll save some of these seed pods. Here comes my butterfly. That is so cool. We have
It's
a
our
little
photobombing
Yeah,
butterfly.
exactly. We have a red cabbage growing here. Looks like another Brussels sprouts, right? We could see where the little Brussels sprouts are at, where the leaves attach to the stem. And we have another cruciferous. I think it was cauliflower that's gone to seed back here. That's kind of cool.
I love to put those yellow flowers in my salad.
Oh yeah.
And broccoli, cauliflower, they're so tasty with a little bit of sweetness.
Fantastic. So we have the kindergarten gardens. They're looking great.
Thanks, Mr. Dave.
Thank
It's been
you.
fun touring the Santa Rita School garden with you today. I think it just goes to show, you don't have to go very far to find nature in your own neighborhood.
Right.